What is up, everybody? I have Kelsey Cadell joining us today. She's the owner of Bloodhound Insurance, and that's the name of her agency. And Kelsey has joined us a couple years ago, and she's just been an amazing asset to the team. And we're grateful that you were able to take time out of your day and join us today.
Yes, hi everybody. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So just kind of start us off by giving us a little bit of your background, kind of what you used to do before you came into insurance.
I did a little bit of everything, but mostly with vehicles, units, whether it be cars or tractors or mowers, push mowers, or even four-wheelers and dirt bikes. I have done parts, I've done service, I've done um, customer service. I've done all of that, but mostly it was all a form of customer service is my background. So I'm used to bending over backwards to make people happy.
So when we met Kelsey, she was actually working at the local, what you call it, the Honda shop?
Yeah, Wise Honda. It's the outdoor power and power sports house. So that's the dirt bikes and side by sides and lawn mowers and tractors.
All the things. They
Yes,
and
all of them.
yeah, they have all kinds of stuff there. So how long did you do that for? How many years did you do parts and service and stuff like that?
Golly, probably about 10 years just going from dealership to dealership. But I was at there at Honda for 2 years, a little over 2 years. I was the parts manager there.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned customer service. I think if I remember right, when Kelsey started with us, she kind of had that customer service background.
Yeah.
And I think it was Kelsey that had a driver be ugly to her. We
hmm
specialize in the trucking industry for those that don't know. So when I say driver, I mean a truck driver. And she had a driver be ugly to her, and she's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Just freaking hang up." She's like, "Well, I don't know if I can do that." And I'm like, "You are your own boss now. We are not in the customer service industry. So when somebody fills out a form, they reach out to you for help. If they're ugly for you trying to help them, that's on them. Just hang up and move on."
So
So
the very next day after you told me that is when it clicked because I was so used to, oh yes, sir, anything you need, sir, whatever, sir. And then if someone was these truck drivers, I mean, they got attitude sometimes. So I had attitude right back at him and I said, Billy, if you will let me finish. And he was real quiet and I sold him. It was the very next day after you told me this is not customer service.
So I know you had some struggles. So Kelsey works from home now. When she joined our team, she was actually in our office. She would use our office, and it worked out because she didn't have the experience for the insurance. And so she was actually sitting right next to my office, so I could hear all of her presentations. I could hear everything that was going on. And I would just walk over there and I'd say, "Hey, Kelsey, do you mind if you know, give you a tip on how to maybe change what you just said or say that differently?" And she's like, "Absolutely." So Kelsey was like a sponge, and she would fix it immediately. Like I would hear it on the next phone call where she would fix it and, make it right, make her presentation better and better and better. And like I said, Kelsey works from home now. She doesn't need all the guidance. But my favorite thing about Kelsey is when she was here in this office, she stayed in her chair. Like that's hard to get people to do, especially after you just wrote one. Like you got a win, you're fixing to get a commission. People want to celebrate. Like people want to get up and leave. They're like, "Oh, finally, got one today. I'm gonna go get my nails done or my hair done or whatever." I tell people all the time, the best time to write an application is right after you just wrote an application. Your energy's high, everything's high. So kind of tell us the struggles that you had, because you didn't just come out of, customer service and just jump into this and just start crushing it. What struggles were there along the way?
I had quite a few learning curves, just mastering the process. Yes, it's a simple plug and play process, but it still takes time to master it. So I had quit my job, at the parts dealership, and I went all in, and I got my first sale within 3 days, but then that was kind of like a lucky thing. I wasn't doing necessarily everything perfect. So I had to grab a part-time job in the evenings, make sure that I could make ends meet, because no matter what happened, I knew I wanted to keep trying this. This was the dream. The option of having my own business and being my own boss, this was the dream. So I wasn't going to up and quit just because I was failing so bad in the beginning. Everyone's going to fail. That's part of it. So I did other options outside of the office to figure out how to make ends meet. And then once I learned it. It was like a light bulb that clicked off in my head somehow. And I just started talking to people. I just started having conversations. And once you realize you can just have conversations and let these people know that you're a real person, they start being a real person back. So I worked night jobs until I figured it out, but I made it.
That's that grit that we were talking about this morning on our team meeting. You know, the grit to just fight through and persevere. And like she said, you know, she just quit her job. Like I don't talk people into quitting their jobs, because this is, you know, there is a learning curve. You don't just go from this to this and you got it figured out. You have to learn how to sell. You have to learn, you know, our process and our systems and things like that. But um, lost track of what I was talking about there. Um, oh, so she went back and started doing stuff at night. I think you were pet sitting and taking out people's trash, and like people were paying her to like come by and collect the trash and go put it in the dumpster and things like that. So a lot of people like myself, my pride probably would have gotten in the way. Like if I would have gotten in this and it wasn't working out, I probably would have had too much pride to like pick up a side job to make this work out. Like just enough to cover what bills I needed to pay. That way I could keep reinvesting into my business and get this thing to take off. So kudos to you for not throwing in the towel as soon as you know saw it wasn't working out, because a lot of people do that. They come into this business or our agency and they get everything, you know, contracted, licensed, all that, and then a week or two goes by, they don't have a sale, they're done, they're gone. So you said after about 3 days you had your first sale,
Mhm.
and how long do you think it took before it, like you were talking about, that light bulb just clicked?
I think it was 2 months, give or take, around that time frame, maybe going on three. It could have been 2.5 months of, and it was the longest 2 months of my life because I mean, I was doing physical labor jobs at night, getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning, get into the office by 8:45 every day to continue doing this in the insurance industry, because this was the goal. I knew that I couldn't just throw in the towel, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that I landed out on top. And honestly, the biggest difference in doing this versus anything else is the leads, and how the leads are, there's no cold calling. Everybody wants me to call them. They want to hear from Hunter. They want to hear from me. They want to hear from us and what we have to say. Even if, nothing crazy has ever happened to them, they want to know what it's all about. They're curious.
We
Makes a
have
big
a
difference.
a great marketing setup, and that takes a lot of the legwork out of it, from the ads that we run. If you never came from doing final expense or any other type of leads, you don't probably realize how spoiled you are. You probably just take it for granted that we have a great system. But how long have you been licensed now?
Going on 2 years, I
Two
believe.
years.
Yeah, going on two. Well, it's been a year and a half, I should say. Not 2 years will be July next year. So
Really?
year and a half. Yeah, it was July.
Wow, it seems like so much longer than that.
Mhm.
All right. So um you're like a killer, like when it comes to writing apps and, you know, just your activity. I mean, like I said, you sit in the chair, you work, and you call and call and call, and it pays off for you. Like we've had conversations in the past, not too long after you got started, and once that light bulb clicked, like I knew you were making money, and I knew that things were going well for you, and that's when I came to your desk and I asked you, and I'm like, so how are things going? Like, what's in your bank account? And you told me, and I'm like, has that ever been in your bank account? You're like, no, absolutely not. So that's what I love. Like that's what I get out of this is knowing that I can help somebody like yourself change their life. Not just get rich. That's not what I mean by change your life. Like how many hours were you working at the Honda shop?
At least 50 hours a week.
50 hours, 50, 60 hours a week
Hmm.
probably. I mean, having to put in overtime
Yes, it took
and
overtime to pay my bills, which was a struggle. And
yeah, and
now, I mean, 5 o'clock rolls around, I'm out the door.
yeah, I mean, you still have to
I don't
work,
have
right?
to.
You still
Yeah.
have to treat it like a job. You still have to show up and put your time in for the day, but I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? I mean, if you, I know you like to ride four-wheelers and dirt bikes and side by sides, like you guys go and just ride, for 3 or 4 days. I mean, how many jobs do you have where they'll let you do that several times a year? Most of the time, people get 1 week of vacation, or if you've been there for a while, maybe two. And then it's got to get approved, right? And if it's in a busy season, they're probably not going to approve you. Probably say, well, no, you can't go. We're just too busy and short-handed right now. That's not
Or
what you want to hear.
yeah, or blackout dates of nope, you can't take off around Christmas or Thanksgiving to be with your family because they're so busy. So it's a blackout date and you can't request off at all. Not to mention, you want to be the team player, you want to be that top-notch employee. And so just the anxiety of trying to get out of work just to see your family. And all the more reason of why where I am now was my goal. I had to get to where I am now and get away from that and be my own boss. And here we are, it's Thanksgiving week, and I can take off early tomorrow and be gone the rest of the week, and I'll be okay.
That's the way it was too when I worked in the oil field. Like there was guys that had been there for 20 or 25 years, so there wasn't a chance I was about to get a holiday off. Seniority had that like wrapped up. I wasn't going to get a Christmas Eve or Christmas. That went to this, the seniority guys that have been there a long time. So that's the difference. Like when we talk about changing people's lives, we're not just talking about financially, because that's going to come if you put in the work. But to be able to afford that freedom, there's so many people out there that don't get to take their kids to school, pick their kids up from school, go to their kids' games. Our kids have game at 4 o'clock. Most jobs are not going to let you leave at 3 or 3:30 to go to your kid's game. We don't have to ask anybody. Kelsey doesn't have to ask anybody if something just pops up. Like you can get a phone call right now, and all of a sudden you got to go somewhere. You don't have to ask anybody, you just go. That's the beauty of being self-employed. But some people, it doesn't work out for them. Some people have to be told what to do. Some people have to have a schedule that has to be lined out where they just show up and they get paid. So can this job be for anybody? 100%. But can anybody do it? No. No, you have to have the grit and determination to like drive through because do you win every single day, Kelsey? Like is every day just like a gold mine?
Not every day,
You
but
you have good days.
you're gonna have the good days, you're gonna have the bad days. You gotta have the positive mentality to make it through the bad days and know that tomorrow's gonna be a better day, or even if it's just that one phone call. One driver and they're not super nice, you can't let that one phone call drag you down for the rest of the day. Just call the next driver and keep going.
Absolutely. So we won't get like into specifics about money because it's not everybody's business and some people aren't driven by money, but I know you're doing well. I mean, I put you on our leaderboard yesterday for the last week. I mean, are you able to cover all of your expenses and have profit, you know, all your monthly expenses, you can pay them all in 1 week?
Yes. I don't have a lot. I took down my life. Like I minimized my bills when doing this, and I haven't broadened anything other than my truck. So it's very easily done in 1 week. And now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, maybe I can pay all my bills in 3 days and keep pushing from there.
Right.
It's
And
nice.
Kelsey's even pulled back a little bit, in the last month or so. I mean, you don't have to work and you don't want to. Don't. I mean, if you got the money to just chill, slow down, do whatever you want, you can do that if you got money in the bank. Um, let's talk about your sales. Like, I don't know if this is just my thing, but it seems like you used it to your advantage when you were here in the office. But you really can connect with drivers with their pets. Kind of explain that.
Okay, so I'm a dog person. Um, and if they got a dog, I'm going to connect with them through that. So a lot of people will be like, or maybe even if they have a wife, I can kind of connect with them through that. But if they've got a dog, I start talking about their dog. Oh, what kind of breed do you have? Oh, I've got a bloodhound. And they're like, oh, the one with the big floppy ears. And I'm like, that's my dog. And I get people sending me pictures of their dogs, and then I'll send pictures back of my dog. So we just start talking dogs. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to have a human beneficiary. That can go to your dog if you want it to. And they're like, really? Yes. Set it up for your estate. Who's going to take care of your dog when you're gone? Give it to that person, and that's how we connect and just take it off from there. I will probably spend way too much time talking about dogs, but if I spend that much time talking about dogs, it's such an easy sell. And then they want more. Then they're like, man, you are such a cool person. I'm going to give your number to so and so. And then I bet they're going to give it to so and so. And so then from there, it just starts taking off. Nothing like free leads.
Yeah, it's like a trust thing too, because if you're a dog person, a lot of dog people say you can tell how to trust somebody by the way your dog acts around them. So dog people dog people mesh well with other dog people. It's a trust thing. So I mean, I've heard Kelsey's presentation, like she asked, is it just you out there on the road, or do you have a spouse, or do you have a road dog? And then like if somebody says something about a dog, I mean it's on. It's it's pretty much a sold deal, isn't it?
Yes. That's how I found out I could win every single time. If they have a dog, I have yet to not close that sale.
That's awesome
So,
though, because people get so wrapped up in like being so proper, like following the script word for word and like not deviating. Like you have to be a person too. Like people want to buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? So
yes.
just having those conversations is what's getting you to that point of them knowing you, liking you, and trusting you. Is having a conversation that's not about insurance. And a lot of people are just strictly insurance. Like this is what we're doing, this is what we're selling, this is what you're buying, and let's go. So you can break up that monotony of because this is a boring job, is it not? Sometimes it's like there's 100 other things I could be doing right now.
I have conversations every time. So it was until I figured out just be a person, just talk to them. And then every day is interesting. I get to hear everybody's stories because I start out telling a story. Your story is what I do every single time. And then I get their story. And then we talk about something else, whether it be a dog or their kids, or we just have a conversation. It builds trust, which is what they want. They want to know who I am. They want to trust me. They want to like me. If they like me, then they're going to buy from me.
So speaking of stories, I mean, these drivers have some of the craziest stories in the world sometimes. Like I have a crazy story from the wreck that I was in, but some of these drivers put me to shame. And sometimes we sit around and talk about these things. Like when you get off the phone with a lead and we're all on Zoom together, you're like, you're not going to believe what this driver just told me. Well, like just something that comes to mind, like what is something crazy that maybe recently has popped up, that when you're trying to talk to somebody about benefits and have you, the question comes up, have you ever dealt with anything like this or known anybody? And then all of a sudden they throw a crazy story.
Just yesterday, a guy, he was like, he told me that he rolled his semi and it caught fire and he suffered severe burns and couldn't work for 3 months. Now he's back in the truck trying to play catch up, and he's doing everything he can to get a policy in place, even if it's going to be the bare minimal. I'm supposed to actually be following up with him tomorrow to see what's going to be the right plan for him because he got all those burns and he's got nerve damage, and he's just happy that he's able to even still be in a truck working.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, because it that could have went a completely different way. I don't even know if you know this story. We had like a fleet that we were talking to last week of 9 drivers that the owner of the company was actually a lead that came in. Emily called him. He wasn't super interested. Apparently, he had plenty of money. Said he had like 11 trucks. He had some rental properties. He had land like 1,000 acres or something. And his family left him quite an inheritance. So it's just kind of really wasn't interested in anything we had to offer. And then he mentioned that he had several trucks. So Emily started asking questions about his trucks. Well, then we booked an appointment. He was going to buy insurance for all 9 of his drivers. We're going to put a package together. He was going to pay for it, or they were going to pay for it, and he was going to reimburse them every month. So set up the appointment. Like a week goes by, we're getting ready for the appointment, getting the Zoom set up, and he calls before the Zoom, and he's like, "Hunter," he's like, "Man, I hate to do this to you. I know we had all this set up, but," he said, "something came up. We're gonna have to either put this off till later on today, tomorrow." He said, "But one of my drivers died last night in his truck." I'm like, "Oh no." And the sad part of the story is really the whole story's sad. But that was the day that he was supposed to retire. So he had been in a truck for like 50 years. And that morning was his last delivery and he was done. He was supposed to retire. Well, sometime during the night, he had a heart attack in the truck, died, never made it to his delivery. And so they started looking for him, pulled the GPS on the truck, found out where he was parked, and they called the authorities, and authorities went and checked on him. He was dead in the truck. And it's sad to me because like if somebody had a massive heart attack like that, they just struggled by themselves. Like nobody was around, nobody to help, just you were struggling to death until you passed. So that was pretty hard on the whole company. So we actually put that off and we're supposed to meet next week. But that's just one of the crazy stories that come up on a daily. These stories happen daily like this.
Mhm.
All right. So what are your plans? Like what are your goals? Like you're making plenty of money that you can do whatever you want and be comfortable. What are your goals? Like what does the next 5 years look like for Kelsey?
Well, um, I actually have a house being delivered right now as we speak on 12 acres. So, next steps are going to be furnishing that home and growing a
You
family
better
in
get to
that
work.
home. Yes.
I just bought furniture. That stuff is ridiculous.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap, especially when you don't want to go cheap on your living room sofa. You want a nice sofa. It's not cheap. So that's why I'm knocking them out. I told you I had a bunch of money just floating around out there, a bunch of leads that I hadn't called, and that's who I was started calling last week, and so I was able to close all those. And I'm still calling them this week. I'm closing them this week to make sure that I can buy furniture for my home. And then later down the road, I'm still actually am interviewing someone this evening to add to my agency. We'll see if this is what she's looking for. And then from there, hopefully she can stick and I can keep spreading the word about what I'm doing because I think what's going to happen is versus just trying to hire random people who aren't licensed from like Indeed or whatever website, it's going to be better agents that stick when they're hearing what we're doing. So that's going to be the new form for trying to grow my own agency. So I do want to grow my agency. I want to build my home, and I want to travel more, which is already, I got things on the list. I've got a cruise planned in January, and I'll be going to, I think I'm going to Cabo in spring. I've got some trips planned. So those are my goals. I want to live life to the fullest is what I want. So, but that begins with core things like making sure my agency is in place. And if my agency is in place and up and running, we're good, then I get to go live my life with my family.
That's awesome. So you said something that most people would think about backwards, I guess. So you said you were talking about buying furniture. You're like, I need to go to work. I need to call these leads I haven't called so I can afford my furniture. I myself used to have a mindset of what can I cut back on to save money for something I need to buy, right? When we come from a scarcity mindset, we don't think about making more money. We think about how do we save money. When the position that you're in now, if you're going to buy five or $10,000 worth of furniture, I mean, all you gotta do is go to work for a week. It's paid for.
Which is
Like you
exactly
don't
what
have to
I'm doing.
you don't have to figure out how to work overtime, work 60, 70, 80 hours a week for, 3 or 4 months to save up enough money to buy the furniture. Like work yourself to death to buy it. Like that is not the lifestyle that we're trying to acquire here. So that was funny that popped up because I that sometimes still creeps in. Like something big comes up. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I need to figure out how to cut some things back to cover this one. So you're talking about building a team, adding people to your team. What does that look like? Are you looking for, I mean, right now we're pretty much a full service life and health agency. We have life insurance products, health insurance products, supplemental indemnities. Is that where you're wanting to stay, or are you wanting to take this insurance thing a step further? What is your plan with that?
Um, I am the type of person that will practice something until it is perfected. And once it is perfected, then I move on to adding the next thing. So I had to perfect the life insurance with the trucker leads, and then I had to perfect the health insurance, do an ACA. So now the next, and now I'm doing hospital indemnities. I've got those down pretty well. So the next thing is, of course, the Medicare. I want to do Medicare, and we've discussed that before. And it's like getting harder and harder for me to get into it, but I haven't given up. And so I was thinking for long-term goals would be have sections of my agency, certain people who specialize in certain things. If they want to learn all of it, more power to them. But if they want to specialize in something, they can pick their own niche, and I will train them on that specific item.
That's awesome. Have somebody that just does health insurance,
Mhm.
just does Medicare, just does life. Like instead of one person trying to figure out how to do it all at the same time, having like, hey, I'm going to take care of your life insurance. As soon as we get this done, I'm going to transfer you to our other agent that specializes in health insurance and get them knocked out and all at the same time, just different people. I think that's awesome. I have actually thought about, I don't know why, because everybody says it's a bad idea. That's why I probably haven't done it yet, but P&C. And I really don't want to do like full blown P&C. I don't want to do houses and cars and all that. I want to get into the P&C just to offer commercial trucking. Like I don't want
I have
everything else that comes with it.
I've been asked if I do that, and so I was considering doing the same thing strictly to cross-sell my current clients. I don't want to get into all the buildings and structures because that's complicated, but if I was just able to cross-sell all of my clients on their truck insurance, then, and I've been asked. It's funny how often I get asked, well, do you do that? Because I need that from you too. I'm like, well, I guess that's the next thing I need to add to my agency considering I get all the
So
requests. So
yeah, and that stuff comes up all the time, like daily. Somebody says, "Do you guys do house and car insurance?" Just because of the stuff I put out on social media. somebody will, text me saying, "Hey, I know you do insurance, to house and cars, drivers all the time. You do truck insurance. Do you do health insurance?" They're asking for these things, and we either have to refer it out, give it to somebody else, or just tell them, I can't help you. And we try not to do that. We try to help every single person we can because we have partnerships that we've built up over the last few years with people that specialize in certain things. Um, but as far as the agency, side of it goes, where trying to think how I want to word this. We've kind of structured ourselves in a way to where we kind of only could offer one thing, and that was life insurance. I've seen you like lately, you're averaging about 3 applications per driver. How are you doing that?
Cross sell. Um, it's all about filling in gaps, is how I explain it to them. And I will present everything as if it was one package. And I ask them, what's most important for you? Do you need to make sure that you're going to get a check when you're confined to a hospital? Do you need to make sure that you're going to get a check if you get diagnosed with a critical chronic terminal issue? Do you need to make sure that you're growing a cash value? Do you need to make sure that your family's taken care of if, God forbid, you were to pass away tomorrow? What's important? And they're like, all of that is important, every single bit of it. I'm like, well, you're in luck because I have all of that. And that's how it's all sold as if you're talking about one product, but it's really maybe three different carriers that you're bundling together to build the proper package for what their need is.
How many people, like, of all the drivers you talk to weekly, how many drivers are actually set up like with benefits? Let's say somebody goes and gets a corporate job, they have 401k, health insurance, disability. How many drivers do you talk to that have that?
I won't have a specific number on that, but I'm going to tell you it seems like it comes in spurts. Just like you may have a spurt of unhealthy drivers, or you may have a spurt of people who have absolutely nothing and they're like, please help me. And then you may have a spurt of people who have everything and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm good to go. And I'm like, okay, well, how long is that going to last you? Make them answer, oh, it'll last me 3 months. Well, Hunter was out of commission for a year. What are you going to do if that happens to you? Oh, and they start thinking. So even if they have something, they still, they know that they still need something. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reached out to you.
Yeah,
Got to
and a lot
figure
of
out what.
people, the magic question is, if something happened to you today and you couldn't work for the next 6 months to a year, how long can you live based off of what's in your savings account right now? Most people are like, not long,
Yeah.
maybe 30 days. So when you ask that question, that's really kind of what sets us apart from somebody that's just selling life insurance. Somebody that's just talking about you dying, when you're going to die, when you could potentially die. We don't even talk about dying. That is not what we do. Like, our offering is the living benefits, disability, critical, chronic, terminal. Like, we want to make sure that you have access to money if God forbid you have to live through something. That's what we don't want. We don't want you losing your mortgage, your big truck, your house, your car, like whatever. We want to make sure that that's paid, even if it's just 25,000. Like, if somebody would have cut me a check for 25,000 when I was going through what I went through, I probably wouldn't have lost everything. I might have got behind, but I wouldn't have just flat out lost it. So that's what really makes me proud, especially the partnership that we have gotten into within the last year with Impact, because where we came from, we really didn't have access to all these other products. And now we have access to whatever we want. If we want to do something completely different, we just call and say, hey, we need this. We need that. We need these contracts for this state and that state. Okay. Like, no questions asked. They know that we're good partners. They know that we're going to write business. We're not just asking for carriers that we're not going to use. Um, do you have anything else that you want to share before we kind of wrap this up? Any ending like tips or whatever you want?
The best tips I have is just be real, be yourself, be transparent. That builds trust. Don't come across as a robot and be willing to make a mess. You got to be willing to make a mess. If you're just scared and you don't try, you're not going to get anywhere. So go get out there, make a mess. It can always be cleaned up. And time management. Time management is huge in this industry. If you cannot control your own schedule, it may not be right for you because you got to control your schedule. You got to, understand that okay, if you're in the chair, you're working. You can't be just goofing off. You got to be working so that you put in those hours so that when you're not in the chair, you can go live your life. That's the ultimate goal. And then the final thing, positive attitude. Can't get anywhere without a positive attitude.
So if you have 10 appointments for the day and one of your girlfriends calls you up and says, "Hey Kelsey, I know you're working from home, you're probably not doing a lot. Let's go to lunch and have some drinks."
I personally would say let's schedule that when I don't have these appointments because I still have my business that I need to run. And my everyone who knows me knows that I'm running my business.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
if
There's a
I
lot of people
wanted
that'll
to, I
skate
still
out real
could.
quick.
If I wanted to, I could, but no. I business hours are open. Time to work.
If somebody called me right now and said, "Hey Hunter, you want to go fishing?" Yeah, let's go. Where do you want me to meet you at? I'm out. Then that's one of those struggles she's talking about because this job does get boring. I mean, when you show up and you put in the work. I was watching a video this morning, these reels on Facebook of these people in third world countries, just their day-to-day job duties. Like this guy was unloading a pallet of bags. I mean, like quick, like onto this conveyor belt. Like he unloaded an entire pallet in probably 15, 20 seconds. And there's another forklift pulling up. He's got another pallet and he's just like he probably does that for 12 hours a day. And we're complaining about sitting here for 8 hours a day, having to, talk to drivers and make, two, three, four, $5,000 in a day. I mean, I know in those third world countries, they're not making that probably in half the year, maybe the whole year. And a lot of those people are making a dollar an hour, 50 cents an hour, some of them. So you just have to take time and like show gratitude. I have this book. Did we send you one of these?
I got that book when I was still in office and I completely filled it out in the first, I think is that for 3 months? I
Oh
can't
yeah, 90,
remember.
91 days.
Yeah, I completely filled out that book.
Yeah, so
I
every
was
day that's
consistent every day.
the top's gratitude, long-term goals, today's goals. So just showing gratitude because sometimes sometimes I forget what kind of crap that I came from with oil field jobs. And I'm like, well, it could be worse. I'm sitting here in my chair and I'm warm. I'm not cold. I'm not killing myself, not out there just slinging a sledgehammer all day. So I'm gonna quit complaining now. But Kelsey, it was an honor to have you on here. Conversation was awesome. I love your stories and just thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely.